Hello YouTube, it's Sean here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another light novel review. Today we are reviewing Dragon Hatchling Volume 1, or the full title is actually Reincarnated as a Dragon Hatchling. Sorry, let me see if I can get it without glare. There you go. There you go. Okay, and this is written by Nekoko, which is a kind of funny name. Obviously it's a kind of like online username, and it's illustrated by Naji Yanagita, if you guys can see that right there. And it's published by 7 Seas under their Airship imprint, which is the light novel imprint that they have. And the demographic here, as far as I can tell, is, you know, standard YA shonen kind of style stuff. This doesn't have a manga adaptation yet, so I don't actually know what the manga's demographic would be, but it's, you know, usually just YA, and depending on how adult the YA content is depends on whether it's a adapted in a seinen magazine or a shonen magazine. And yeah, the genres here are isekai, fantasy, and this is definitely a lit RPG. The video game aspect is rather important and actually very well structured. It's not very like complex, at least not that complex, right? But it is, you know, definitely a major aspect of the story. But I mean, game lit RPG, more or less the same thing. I think game lit is more broadly stuff that is related to video games in some way, and lit RPG is a lot more specific, with its like, with the requirements of the game actually being relatively important to the plot line. So there you go. This does not currently have any sort of adaptation, manga or anime, but I mean, I'm sure it's going to happen at some point if the success of the Spider So What anime is big enough, right? And I'm not actually too sure. I've seen a few scenes of it. It doesn't look that well animated, but it doesn't look horrible either. It just probably has to do with the fact that it's like a animal instead of a person, and that's kind of maybe probably harder to animate in some way. And yeah, the premise here is basically that this guy, well, he thinks he's a guy, we don't actually know if it's a guy, he's reborn as a dragon, right? And he's this cute little kind of thing, but he actually starts off as an egg. So he actually ends up being like, for a third of the book, he is actually a dragon hatchling stuck in an egg, right? With little like legs coming out of it. And now he just has to survive. He has to figure out a way to, one, hatch, and then two, actually survive this crazy new magical world that he's in, right? And the thing is that our character is significantly like empathic, and he's actually kind of really nice. And so he kind of gets lonely, and as loneliness sets in, our character kind of starts doing things that maybe he shouldn't, that then lead into him trying to figure out a way to earn the ability to transform into a human, which is a specific skill that we kind of see that he wants. And so basically that's kind of where we're at. We see this character just kind of like first hatch and then try to grow into the dragon necessary in order to get the human transformation skill. And it's actually pretty good. He obviously doesn't get anywhere near close enough to actually getting to that point, but we get to see him kind of like start growing and kind of enjoy his time in this new world. So there you go. The plot line here is good. It's very similar to I'm a Spider So What. In fact, I think it would be kind of almost the same, if not for the fact that we don't actually know where the main character comes from, whereas in Spider So What we kind of do. She is from a high school, and she got stuck in her body, and everyone in her class reincarnated. In this case, we don't actually know anything about our main character's past life, except that he was probably a guy, and that he kind of has enough knowledge about video games to kind of figure out how these kind of work. And that's basically it. He gets reincarnated as a monster, and he has to learn to survive, and along the way, he grows stronger. And in this case, he actually has to evolve, right? Which I think is the same thing in I'm a Spider So What. Which would be kind of the same thing as like an ascension if you're reading like wuxia novels and stuff like that. And yeah, eventually he interacts with some humans, and it's difficult because he's a dragon, and dragons are very powerful beasts, and he can't really speak to them, so there's a difficulty there. And he's trying to become kind of a friendlier monster, and that's why he wants that human transformation skill. We also get this kind of weird cooking subplot that I really liked because I really like cooking manga and cooking stories. I think that is one of the things that we kind of miss out on the Western side of fantasy because I think Japan just doesn't give a fuck. They're just like, yeah, I mean, someone's gonna read this, and if we market it well enough, a lot of people will read it, so let's just do it. And Japanese media doesn't take itself as seriously as Western fantasy. So I really like that cooking subplot, and I actually really like that it doesn't actually play into his leveling at all, but he still treats it kind of very methodically, right? And I really enjoy that. I think that that's a very cool way of approaching it, and we actually get to see a little bit of like cooking knowledge, right? Of stuff that kind of makes sense in real life cooking that I thought was really fun. And through his cooking, he kind of gets another friendly monster out of it, so it's pretty cool. I really like it. But yeah, so that's it for the plotline. I thought it was really good. Characters wise, we basically have our nameless main character. We don't really know how to approach him, or we don't know how to call him as we read, because it's in first person, and so he's narrating his own story, and so you don't actually know his name, right? And yeah, I think he's very funny and very easygoing. He's very enjoyable, and of course, this has to be the case because he's basically the only character, and it's actually pretty good. It's very well done. He's not as witty and sarcastic and kind of like sassy as Kumoko in Spider So What, but he is kind of a little bit more laid back, more easygoing, more enjoyable kind of main character. So yeah, I mean, I think basically he's good. We also have a secondary character that's not really a character. It's the divine voice thing, you know, the person that gives him the information that he needs in the video game. And we get to see that divine voice is kind of sentient in some way, and not exactly, but it kind of has like a secondary character, and it provides our main dragon guy some kind of like person to kind of develop jokes around and stuff like that. And it's pretty good. I actually like the way they interact. I mean, the divine voice doesn't really do too much. It doesn't really talk very much, but when it does, it like, you know, it's up to something and you don't know what that is, and so it's very enjoyable to kind of try to figure out what that is. Then there's this human girl. Her name is Miria, and she's a very earnest kind of wizard apprentice, and I really like her. We get to see side chapters with her, and I'm pretty sure she's the girl that's here on the cover, and I think she's going to become a relevant character, and it's going to be like the first person that our dragon character interacts with. But I'm not really sure how that's going to be achieved, because basically they're very far apart, and there really isn't any kind of like way that I can see where they're going to interact that well or that quickly. So it's going to probably a while, and we're going to have two separate kind of storylines that kind of eventually cross paths again. And then we have another character here, which is this little poison lizard who, as far as I know, is female compared to our dragon male, and they seem to be very intelligent for a monster, and so I'm curious to see if that's kind of like another reincarnated person or not. I don't really think so, but it's kind of interesting, and it actually has a very cute kind of vibe to it. The little lizard is very adorable, and the interactions between the dragon and the lizard are very nice. But yeah, that's it for characters. World building wise, it's good and it's easy to understand. The game mechanics are very well explained. Mostly you just get stat sheets. Let's see if I can find one. Like these. And they kind of tell you everything you need. And the character kind of mentions it, and then you get the stat sheet, and then you can read the stat sheet for yourself. And then he continues to talk about what he wants to do, what he's trying to achieve. And that's pretty good. I like that. There's a good fantasy world here with lots of different monsters. We get to see wolves, dragons, spiders, centipedes, lizards, Cerberuses or Cerberi, a bunch of different crazy kind of monsters that are very, very common in fantasy settings, at least in the video game kind of fantasy settings. And we get to see, you know, how they interact with each other and how stuff happens. And obviously there's humans and they have different classes. There's like the warrior class, the, you know, rogue and the wizard and stuff like that. But we don't really get too much about the human side of things. We mostly just focus on the monsters and the kind of fauna. You know, there's a lot of different materials that our dragon collects in order to try to cook better. There's these plants that have salt in them, and so he grabs the plants and breaks them off, and then he extracts the salt. And you know, there's a lot of different stuff like that. He uses his fighting abilities in order to actually create food in a very fun way. And so I think the world building here is very nice. Now, art-wise, it's good. It's very similar to the slime isekai, actually. Reincarnated as a slime. It's actually very similar to that. It has this kind of nice, sketchy style that is not very colorful, but kind of nicely done. I really like it. I think it's very nice. But yeah, overall, very nice. It has this kind of not as refined, but not bad kind of style. And I really like it. I think it's very nice. I don't remember if there's any pictures of the human characters. I think there are, but I don't remember when. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, there we go. So there you go. I think it's actually better at drawing humans than the slime isekai one, but that one is mostly focused on the monsters, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, there you go. That's it. Fanservice wise, there really isn't nothing. There really isn't anything. Sorry, that was a double negative. There really isn't anything here to kind of fanservice size. I think there's like one innuendo, but it's kind of weird, and it's not really that like noticeable. But none of the female characters that show up, Miria or her teacher, end up in any kind of lewd situations, mostly because I don't think it really makes sense. The character's a dragon, so it's a little odd. And he's not with them, so yeah, I don't think it's gonna get that kind of sort of thing until a lot later in the books. But right now there's no fan service, so this is a safe title to read if you don't really like that type of stuff. And yeah, rating wise, this is a 4 out of 5. I think it's very good. I really did enjoy it. It's not complex in any major way. It's just kind of like a fun comfort read that kind of has a lot of those same elements that you would like in Spider So What and in Slime Isekai and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it for my rating. I think I really enjoyed it. And yeah, there's nothing much to it, I guess. So yeah, I definitely recommend this title. But yeah, similar titles here. Things that you might want to read if you like this book, or things that you've read that might mean you like this book are like I said, the Reincarnated as a Slime, I'm a Spider So What, and in general, all of those kind of like reincarnated as a monster type things, right? Of course, there's all kind of different variations to that. Their werewolf might be a little bit more similar to this, but only in the sense that the character doesn't really care about its human past. And instead just wants to continue to live as a monster. But in terms of like how the story is structured, this is a lot more similar to Spider So What. But we don't really know how it's going to play out. So it might actually end up being similar to Slime Isekai later, where our main character kind of turns into this lord of monsters. So I'm not really sure, but overall I think I really enjoyed it. I think it's very good. And yeah, I think that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And yeah, I really do appreciate everything that you guys do for me. Every review and comment and like that you give is very meaningful to me. So I really do appreciate y'all. And see you guys later.